Hi everyone, Eva here. I'm the owner and founder of My Sleeping Baby, and today's Friday. Happy Friday, everyone. So today's Friday focus question, which is a question that I answer every Friday from one mom in the My Sleeping Baby community, is from Lori. And her question is, sleep advice, please. My son is 7 months old, and I feel like we are never going to sleep. He is literally the happiest baby and naps beautifully, but nighttime is hell. He started sleeping through the night at 2.5 months, and since the 4 month regression, it's been horrible. Putting him to sleep is quite easy, except for tonight. He's sick. The problem is that he wakes up a million times, and giving a passy doesn't help. The doctor says not to feed him, and he said he had night feed since 2.5 months old. Not really sure what that means, but he doesn't seem hungry. Okay, it seems as if he can't get himself back to sleep. I've let go, cry it out, but then my daughter wakes up and is scared. What do I do? My daughter was the best sleeper ever, so I'm in for a big shock. Any advice, please? Oh boy, I was in for the exact same shock with my younger daughter, because my older one was also the greatest sleeper in the entire world, and then my younger one was born, and I suppose you can't hit the jackpot twice, right? So I totally hear you, and I feel for you. Now, in terms of getting your baby sleeping, at 7 months, I've always said this, that at this age, a healthy 7-month-old baby is perfectly capable of giving you substantially better sleep than what he is giving you. If your baby is healthy and he's gaining weight and daytime nutrition is optimal, which it sounds like it is, because you said he's not eating very much at night, he just wakes a lot, then perhaps he might still need one night feed, but he's not going to need to be eating any more than that. He's perfectly capable of taking down the majority of his calories during daytime hours. So looking at what's been going on here, the very first question that I would like to know, that the very first factor that could be causing this problem is overtiredness, because you mentioned that he naps well during the day, so that's great. But my question is he taking 2 naps or taking 3 naps? Because I find that with babies in the 6 to 7 month age range, what can often happen is that because that third nap can be so tricky, that parents just often remove it. And then it means that you might have a baby napping beautifully in the morning and then beautifully again in the early afternoon. But if they end up being awake for a huge chunk of time before bedtime, then you're going to get an overtired baby. And once your baby is overtired, from a basic sleep science standpoint, their bodies produce this stress hormone. It's a hormone that your nervous system secretes called cortisol. And once that's in your system, it's much harder for a baby to fall asleep, and it can specifically cause the baby to wake up at night. So the very first thing that I would want to know is what exactly does the nap schedule look like? And if he's been skipping that third nap and the wake window before bedtime ends up being really, really big, to make sure to add that third nap back in, because a typical 7-month-old baby usually can't be awake for much longer than 2.5 hours, maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes. But very often, if they drop that third nap too early, that wake window before bedtime can end up being 3 or 4 hours, which can individually wreak havoc on night sleep. So that would be the first thing that I would be very, very careful of, is to make sure that if your baby's wake windows are 2 to 2.5 hours, that he isn't awake for longer than 2 to 2.5 hours before bedtime as well. The second thing, and this is equally important to the first factor that I mentioned, is how is he falling asleep at bedtime? Because it's so important in these types of situations to make sure that your baby is going down for bed 100% awake. In order to maximize a baby's sleep and eliminate all of these non-nutritive night wakings, it's crucial for him to have the tools in his toolbox to be able to put himself to sleep completely on his own, so that when he wakes up at night, he doesn't need help from you putting himself back to sleep. So this doesn't mean that he goes down drowsy but awake. You want him going down awake. Drowsy but awake means that he's getting some help falling asleep, putting him down completely awake means that he's doing all the work on his own. So he doesn't need to be taking a pacifier. In order for a baby to be able to settle on their own, they don't necessarily need a pacifier or a thumb or a bottle nipple or a breast in their mouth to be able to go to sleep. They can learn how to fall asleep on their own and fall back to sleep on their own. But in a situation like this, it sounds like you're definitely gonna want to pick some kind of sleep training method, and really, which again involves putting the baby down completely awake and then allowing him to put himself back to sleep when he wakes up completely on his own. So, the type of interaction that you give him while he's going through this learning process is completely up to you. There's various different methods that you can look into, ranging from the Sleep Lady Shuffle, which I use all the time, Dr. Ferber's progressive weighting approach, which I use all the time, the sleep wave, I use that all the time. It's similar to Ferber, but all of these approaches will get you to the same endpoint as long as it's done properly and consistently and correctly, and as long as it's done as part of a bigger plan. You see, leaving him to cry it out is not going to work if he's overtired, for example. So if there's a problem with the schedule and he's waking up at night because he's overtired, we need to be addressing the root of the problem first before attempting any sleep training. Otherwise, the sleep training just might not work. So I would really be paying attention. And sorry, let me back up a quick second. Leaving him to cry it out in the middle of the night isn't going to work if he was put down in the crib drowsy, very drowsy, or completely asleep initially, because it means that he never acquired the skills that he needs to be able to just roll over and go back to sleep. And, with regards to your older daughter that might get woken up, I know there was a suggestion in the thread to maybe, send her to grandparents, or maybe, have your partner sleep with her in the basement so that she doesn't get woken up. Hopefully that'll be good enough. You would be very surprised to see what kids can sleep through, though, especially, in the first 2/3 of the night when they're in a very, very deep sleep. You would be shocked to see what they can sleep through, and and what really doesn't end up waking them up. So hopefully it doesn't end up being as bad as you fear. So I hope this was helpful. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend, everyone. Take care.